Bowling off this Tuesday on the SportsMax Zone with cricket. West Indies failed to close out a series win against South Africa, losing the third and final one-day international earlier on Tuesday at Sandwest Park in Potchefstroom. Sheikh Hope was not able to follow up on his century in the second game, but Brandon King stepped up to top scorer with 72 as the West Indies were dismissed for 260 in 48.2 overs. Nicholas Puran also got a start, contributing 39 in the number 5 position. Marco Jansen and Bjorn Fortune both took 2 for 46 for the Proteas. South Africa then blasted their way to the target of 261, needing just 29.3 overs to reach 264 for 6. Player of the match, Heinrich Klaassen, led the chase with an unbeaten 119, needed just 61 balls to get those. Marco Jansen followed up his 2 wickets with 43 runs. Azara Joseph was again the West Indies' best bowler, taking 3 for 50, and Akil Hussain had 2 for 49. Let's hear from the skipper, Sheikh Hope.
I thought that we batted well in stages, but we didn't capitalise on the start that we got again from Kingy and Mears. But again, sometimes you have to give credit where it's due, and Klaassen played an excellent innings today. And again, we can discuss all the points looking back in hindsight, but we didn't hit our straps today, and South Africa won the game. I really truly like to see the attitude improve. I think that we need to show that die-hard fight a lot longer. We know that winning is a habit, and the same way winning is a habit, losing can be a habit as well. So we need to find ways to turn that around and just fight as hard as you can. You never know. Cricket is one of those games that you never know what's going to happen in the back end. So as long as you put that effort in and you have that attitude to win, things normally happen in your favour. I can't 100% put my finger on it, but I just think that we are generally a more aggressive type of players. The white ball formats normally suit our style of play, but we need to find ways to adapt regardless of the format or the situation of the game. And as I said, we need to create winning habits, and the only way we can do so is by winning games and finding ways to win games. So I can't really put my finger on it like that.
All right, that's the West Indies captain, Sheikh Hope. Now to the man who boldly predicted that the West Indies would win the match today and by extension have their first one-day international series win. In fact, any series win in South Africa. Nikhil Chandani. How are you feeling, Nikhil, after the West Indies performance? Threw egg in your face?
Well, I think, Ricardo, slightly disappointed. I'm also quite shocked of the onslaught I got at the beginning of the show from you and Mariah, but it's okay.
Me?
I think
I was all Mariah.
Both. But I'm young, but I think, I'm learning to fight my way, as Sheikh Hope said he wants to see from his team. But I think whilst I'm disappointed, equally I'm a bit optimistic as well from what I've seen in this series. I think if you ask anyone going into the series, would you take a series draw coming out of it? Sheikh Hope's first series as captain, a new head coach, I think they would take that. And I mean, yes, South Africa missed a few names. Still, you look at the quality that they possess today, it showed you how valuable that first win was. I think we all, as West Indian fans, are going to have to look at this one international team as they go to the World Cup qualifiers. And we're going to have to know that, look, this is a process. It's going to take time. This is a new captain, a new culture within the side. And so far, I think I've been impressed with his captaincy and what he said at the start of that press conference as well. Yeah.
How would you assess today's overall performance, though?
I think taking nothing away from Heinrich Klaassen with that world-class innings, I think the West Indies really and truly beat themselves today. And when I look at certain things, like with the bat especially, 8 starts, 8 players in double figures, and no one really able to kick on with the exception of Brandon King. I just think, the surface, as we know, is usually good for batting in the day period. So the West Indies really had no excuses. They had a good start, had a good partnership early between Brooks and King, and then just never was able to kick on. And then with the ball in hand, it just seemed like, some lapses in concentration. Again, the fielding intensity from players that I expect, to be sort of the best fielders going around in terms of world cricket. You look at Nicholas Puran and Robman Powell, there were a couple fumbles, and then 18 extras bowled by the West Indies. I just felt, as Sheikh Hope said, the attitude just wasn't there in terms of the fight. It just seemed like from the time South Africa sort of punched back at them after the 10th over, the West Indies just had no answer and they just faltered.
Are you surprised, though, at the comments by Shai Hope, because the question that came to him was to name 2 or 3 things that he would like to see the team improve on as they go into the World Cup qualifiers. And top of that list was him talking about the attitude. Are you surprised that he would have gone there at this stage, just 2 matches into his ODI captaincy? Or does it speak to how big a problem it actually is?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I would say I'm impressed. I think a new captain coming in, that sends a message into your dressing room that, look, you know, you have to be serious if you want to be in this setup, if you want to sustain and be part of this entire culture. He knows the importance of a Cricket World Cup later this year in India. But before that, going to the qualifiers, which will not be an easy task. Sri Lanka, Ireland, Zimbabwe, they'll have to beat those teams if they want to get to that World Cup phase. So I think it requires a level of seriousness, and that's what he's brought. And by him making those comments, I think it sends a wake-up call and a sort of a signal, not only to that dressing room, but the rest of the region in terms of, look, I mean, I think the attitude overall needs improving, but also we have to be very serious about what we're doing if we want to have any chance of beating the best teams in the world.
Right, and if we are to have any chances of beating the best team, we saw a couple of, good performances that I think it's something positive to take away from the series. And I'll start with Brandon King at the top of the order today, 72 of 72 balls. I think, his approach with the bat was very impressive. What say you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this role for Brandon King, I know he's scored a couple of 90s, batting lower down the order at 4 and 5, but I definitely love him opening the batting because of the fact that he can maximize the power play. And if Shai Hope as captain, it sort of takes the burden off of him and still allows him sort of to bat relatively early in the innings. I think is a double win situation for the West Indies, because here you have your T20 international opening partnership, almost not necessarily treating it like a T20 game, but batting with that similar intent in the first 10 overs where you only have the 2 fielders outside the circle. I think King is a lot stronger against pace as he is to spin, and in that first power play you'll get a lot more seam as well. So I think they're making the perfect complement, and I would love to see it going forward. I think he's looked like a completely different player against the new ball, and we all know the quality of Brandon King. It was only a matter of time, I thought, before he gets a few scores, and it seems like the top of the order is where he belongs.
Right, and as I continue to single out the good performance, Alzarri Joseph, he came out of the tournament as the leading wicket taker. We watched him bowl, and of course, the moment, and Shai Hope was asked about this earlier, you give him the ball, he has this sort of workman-like behavior. He knows he has to produce for you, and he gets the job done. He finished the tournament with 6 wickets, and remember, the first match was rained out. Best bowling figures of 3 for 50, so another one to watch very closely.
Definitely. I think this man, I mean, he made the ICC One International Team of the Year last year. And if he makes it again this year, I think he's in the conversation with Bumrah, with Stark, with Jofra Archer when he's fit, as one of the best One International bowlers in the world. But the reason I definitely see an improvement in Alzarri Joseph is not only because of this format. It's across all 3 formats. He just looks a lot more serious about what he's doing. Obviously, maturity would have also worked in his favour. He's been around the game now for a long time. And every single game, he just puts in that maximum effort and takes wickets for the West Indies. That's the most important thing. That spell today, the delivery he got Dezorzi with, that was an aggressive spell, an aggressive piece of fast bowling, which I think would have excited the entire region. So I think he's turning into a world-class seamer, and I hope he continues to put that sort of effort into his game, because you can see the dividends that it's reaping.
Yeah, Nikhil, a lot of emphasis post-match on the West Indies' deficiencies in this game, and we saw the bowling ripped apart by the South African Klassens, not coming at a strike rate of almost 200, his 119 of 60 odd balls, and the out cricket wasn't good either. But it was put to Shai Hope post-match that 260 was not enough, really, and he kind of glossed over that. I think he partially accepted it, but he glossed over that and suggested that it was the bowling that really disappointed him more. But I would suggest that in the first half of the match, when they had a batting job to do, they should have done a lot better.
Lance, I'm so happy you brought this up, because I think I agree with you in terms of the batting needs help. And having watched that performance today, I went and did some digging into the West Indies' last couple of One Internationals. The last 8 times that the West Indies have batted first and got to 300, Shai Hope has scored 50 or more 6 times, and he's got 300s in those 6 innings. And for me, that rings an alarm bell. it tells me that there's a serious dependency. I mean, yes, we knew the man averages over 50 in one international cricket, but it tells me that the West Indies are desperately depending on this man on screen to get 50 plus if they're to get anywhere close to 300. Today, he only got 16, and you can see they fell way short of that 300 mark. And the 2 times when they actually did get to 300 without him, he still got scores of 42 and 24, so he still contributed with the bat in a small way. It just seems like someone else in that top order, especially whether it be Nicholas Pooran, whether it be one of the openers. I know Kyle Mayer's got 100 in that New Zealand series. Someone else has to put their hand up and look for a 3-figure score as well. When Hope is batting and he has a score, I'm all for being aggressive at the other end. But if he gets out like he did today, someone has got to put their hand up from that top order and say, look, I'm going to try to get to the 40th over to give us a chance of getting to 300. Because let's face it, the one-day international game has grown drastically. Scores of below 300 as made look today is not enough. So the West Indies are going to have to get to 300 plus if they want to have any chance in those qualifiers.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought 260 was definitely not enough today. Just one more thing on the post-match interview with Shai Hope. He was asked before the interview wrapped up on the West Indies' hopes in the T20s because those start later this week. And his first comment, obviously, was he's not a part of that squad. And somehow I detected a little bit of disappointment on his part that he's sorry that he isn't a part of the T20 setup.
I think definitely he'll be disappointed, and I think he has to use that Caribbean Premier League coming up later this year as a way of just showing the world. I think he's advanced his sort of hitting ability a lot. You saw the 7 6s in the last innings. I watched him in the Bangladesh Premier League earlier this year as well, where he caught a few 50s. He has, I think, added another element to his game, but of course, our criteria here in the West Indies is that Caribbean Premier League. And until he shows it in that league, that's the only way I think he makes a return to the side. But if you ask me if Shai Hope could play cricket for anybody in the world in any format, I'll say this man is one of the best players I've ever seen. So get him in.
Yeah, very much so, Nikhil. And since we're on the point of Shai Hope, just want to go back to a discussion that we started yesterday because one of the first things I was looking for in this final one-day international is where Shai Hope would bat. Now, today he batted at number 4, whereas in the second game he batted at number 5 and scored a century. Is it just that at this stage they are experimenting to see what works best leading into the World Cup qualifiers?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that. Also, you've got, I think, very versatile players in that top order. In Hope, who obviously has batted 1 through 5 throughout his career. Obviously, more opening the batting and batting at 3 when he first entered one international cricket. But Nicholas Pooran as well. I mean, you look at his numbers at 3, 4, and 5. He can also bat at 3, and he did it when he was captain. So I think they have some decisions to make. Shamar Brooks, I think there are people knocking on the door. Someone like a Casey Carty, who's impressed at times with a few starts. So I think they really have to sit down going into those qualifiers and figure out a top 5. It's all for the experimentation. Of course, this didn't go to the ODI Super League, so I'm all for that experimentation. I would have probably liked to see it maybe with a Shannon Gabriel or Romario Shepherd. But in those World Cup qualifiers, have a set top 5 which you're going to bat and go through that with the tournament, because sometimes the changing of roles and changing of requests can just play a bit on the mind of batters. So I would like to see the West Indies just find a top 5 that works best for them. Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I give you a chance at redemption, Nikhil. The T20 International Series coming up. Here's your chance to predict. You have 15 seconds. Ricardo, I'm an optimist, but I think that South Africa side is really stacked and they've grown massively in white ball cricket, so I think the West Indies may find it a bit challenging.
Good answer, Nikhil. I'm proud of you.
So you're saying South Africa will win? Is that what you're saying, Nikhil?
Ask me after the first T20.
His answer was fine.
What type of analyst are you?
A good one.
You're supposed to know this.
I think they'll find it a bit challenging. We'll see what the series score is.
Good answer.
Oh my God, he's gotten scared after one wrong prediction.
No, that was a good answer. Let's leave him.
Lance, that's like a hurdler falling once and he doesn't want to hurdle anymore.
We have to go to break. Thank you, Nikhil. I'm saving you now.
Right. Dr. Kishore Shallow coming up in the next segment.
Yes.
Lone candidate for presidency of West Indies Cricket Board, Cricket West Indies this weekend.
Yeah, big one.
Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.